Okay, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the beat and pour lots of light lightning on your brain. What are we talking about today, Sam? Oh,
Wow,
God.
we just finished episode 1 of season 3 of Wheel of Time, and if anybody watched the last episode, I was optimistic that they had learned some lessons, and Hollywood less woke, and all of these things. I could not have been more wrong. Uh, if if the cringe was any harder, it'd be Ron Jeremy. It, if it sucked anymore, it'd be Ann Mall. Okay,
No, no,
it's
hold on.
it's
Okay,
like,
so
and if you got that last reference, you got some old school porn. Okay.
okay, but speaking of porn, when I was rewatching season one,
Oh.
I texted you, and I stand by this. And I've heard some of the people on FNT
I
make
thought you
this
were talking about the
joke.
new episode while I was watching the new episode, and then you
No, no,
texted
no,
that
no.
you haven't watched it yet.
I was rewatching season one, and since I started it, I went ahead and I finished season one, and there was a bunch of stuff I was scratching my head going, did they address this? Did they resolve this in season two? And I couldn't remember, but I didn't care. I wanted to see season three and see if you were right that okay, they're moving on. They've said this is going to be the most book accurate, the most book faithful. Let's
What I'll give
see.
them is they threw a lot of book stuff in.
Yes.
And
Okay.
that's what and okay, so if I'm going to remain optimistic, which I'm actually not, but if I was to steel man this, they did it this clunky way to try to right the ship, basically just turning the wheel as fast as they could.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but at the same time, I could have like
I
split my
will
wrists that
say
last.
t-
Don't clip that. I could have done. I could have, you know,
pulled a step in.
yeah,
Um,
pull a step in. Yeah.
it, I will say one of the few good bits, but this is relatively good, is relative to the first season. This episode was actually more technically competent than the other episodes. It looked better. It flowed better, more importantly. That was something I noticed in a lot of uh, uh, most of the 8 episodes of the first season. One of my concluding notes on it was they were just a bunch of scenes. In fact, there were only 1 or 2 episodes that stood out because each scene flowed naturally from one to the other. It wasn't just a sequence of events,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. And so when you actually had an episode that flowed, it was, oh wow, hey, storytelling. I remember what that's supposed to look like. But the reason the porn reference made me laugh is because when I texted you earlier, it was I had gotten to episode 6 where you have that ridiculous cringe scene between Moraine and Sawan. And I said I wasn't looking at the crew. I wasn't looking
Hmm.
at the credits because you wanted a blind sampling and let's rank the episodes without looking at who the writers, director, etc. of that episode was. And I was really wanting to know in that one in particular because on rewatching that scene, it is so cringe. It made me wonder either it's a couple of soy boys who are allies or it's some overweight pink haired dyke
Hmm.
because this is not someone who knows people and definitely isn't someone who knows women. Um, in fact, and I said to you, an actual porn writer slash director could have made a more emotionally impactful scene that wasn't cringe. There was no emotion, there was no passion, there
Hmm.
was no, if you watch a good romantic scene, you're supposed to feel at least some kind of tingle as a feeling human being. It was just the whole way through. But after rewatching uh the whole season, what was interesting to me is I ended up ranking episode 6 as the best episode,
Even though I had the cringe scene,
which was not what we thought at the time,
why
but
the hell does my camera keep turning off?
I don't know. But
It did it again.
the episode as a whole was the best episode because each scene individually is pretty good as far as how it's shot, how the actors do in the scene, and then even that horribly cringy scene, as cringe as it is, it actually flows. It's also one of the only times we get a legitimate male mentor. I had forgotten how good Sawan's dad was, both in
Oh
writing
yes,
and
yeah.
in his portrayal of this is what we were ranting about how where's Master Luhan? Why did you turn Abel into an alcoholic jerk? Why isn't Lan teaching the boys? Nynaeve is not an orphan. Now, I did find out later in reading some things, actually, it is canon. Her parents did die when she was relatively young, but not young enough to be orphaned. It was around the time she apprenticed to the wisdom. So she is an orphan in that her parents are already dead, but they were around long enough, especially her father. She makes a point that her father was a very positive masculine mentor to her, and that matters. And Sawan's father is just about the only time you ever see that in the first season from a male. I even noticed it when remember we thought that one of the few bright spots in the first season were the Tinkers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, upon rewatching it, suddenly dawned on me, wait, where the hell is Rain? He's technically the leader of this. Ilya is always the one speaking. So that sets up the failure of this season. So, for instance, going to get out a little bit out of order here, but they combine a number of things. And one of the things they combine is the bubble of evil from the beginning of the Shadow Rising,
Except the bubble of evil is not a bubble of evil.
because it's being caused by Lanfear. Yeah, we'll
And
get to
others.
that.
Yeah.
But Rand manages to fight off multiples of himself. How? We never see him becoming a competent warrior.
No,
But
Egwene was the reason he made it.
exactly. But he is able to at least hold them off every once in a while. He actually gets to, help Egwene, even though she's ultimately the one who figures out what's going on and how to stop it, because of course she is. But
I
in
would love
the
to have seen a Barrelane there.
yeah, in the
If you're gonna
coming
make it porn, God.
exactly. Well, we'll
Yeah,
get to that.
yeah.
Um, but in the coming up on this season, they show you what looks like a training sequence with Lan and Rand. Little late, guys. Little late.
Yep. Well, we're
All
gonna
you're
get it
going to
because
do with
Land's
that,
going with Rand. Let's
yes,
start from the beginning of the episode though.
yeah.
Let's kind of go through it in chronological order. My first note was, why did they make Swan look like a turtle? Uh, she had her Mitch McConnell going pretty strong there.
Once again,
Oh,
now
by the
the
way, Isomorphic Scott, I know both of you are not drinkers. If you want to stay that way, just listen to our episode and don't actually watch it. But if you listen to us and you watch it, you may be tempted to partake. It is whew.
or whatever your vice of choice is,
Yeah,
because
yeah. If you don't drink, you might be doubling down on the
or
chocolate bunnies or
or
something.
do what I had to do when I was rewatching episode one, which was I paused a lot and I get up and I was like, I'm gonna go. I hate doing dishes, but I'm gonna go do the dishes because I'd rather do that than keep watching this scene. All right, well, I finished that. Now let's go back and finish watching. Um, I didn't do that a lot here because I was just trying to get through it so we could record tonight because we're both busy on the weekend. And one of the things that I noticed in season one that I've mentioned before is how unattractive so many of the actresses are when they are actually very attractive women.
Yeah, I brought up Nynaeve last time
And,
because the way she did her hair before this show
mhm, mhm.
and the way she did her makeup and everything, it framed her face. It and actually brought out the beauty of it. And I think she's wearing contacts to make her eyes darker because they wanted her to be more ethnic.
Mhm.
Because in real life she has like vibrant green eyes. And so obviously, if she's American, she probably was a very not becoming action by an owner of property at some point. And it's it's a shame though, because we can't control our past, but we can
Mhm.
control what we have to work with. And she was doing it very well until this season in this series where they had an agenda, and she may be in on it or she may be not. I don't know.
Yes.
And they're like, we need you to look this way. Okay, the braid is great. We need to do the braid. She can't frame her face, right? But at the same time, they did the cornrows going into the braid.
Hmm.
And it's like, why'd you have to do the cornrows? You know how much time cornrows take and help they take. So it's uh, it's a shame because she could be so beautiful. And like you talk about, I maybe not agree on my own personal taste with Myral, but at the same time, she is more authentically beautiful outside of
Alana is who I'd mentioned
Alana.
before.
Alana,
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah. I think I think they combined Myral and Alana into the character.
that she's representing several. Most of them are, which
Hmm.
is necessary. I'd forget. I had since I didn't watch season two. I had forgotten that they combined Varen and Van Dien
Mm.
until I started this, and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. I completely forgot that they did that. Um, which look, that isn't a deal breaker, and we have talked before and used as an example of the way Peter Jackson streamlined the Lord of the Rings
Hmm.
books because he had to. But there's a really good video out there by a channel called So Uncivilized. And he doesn't have a lot of videos, but what videos he does have are high quality as opposed to us. We have a lot of terrible quality videos. But that's not the point.
Hey, we may be getting better or worse. I don't know.
The point is, one of his most recent ones was something to the effect of why Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings feels Tolkien-esque even when it's not. Because he does. He takes things out of order. He'll take something that somebody said in Return of the King and have Gandalf say it in Fellowship because it works there. And that helps it. And by using Tolkien's own language, it helps maintain the feel and helps it feel like what Tolkien was trying to achieve.
Okay. So this gets me on a good train of thought for this episode, because one of the things that was put out before this season came out was that they're gonna go to spoiler alerts if you haven't watched it. If you're watching this before you watch the episode, you're dumb. The they're gonna go to the waste before they go to tier.
And unless you want to be mentally prepared for how awful it's going to
Yeah.
be.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So if you've read the books, Rand does this thing and he ends up in tier, and things happen which are very like sporadic and semi-random from a lot of different directions. But that's to illustrate how the pattern works,
Uh-huh.
right? And that's the problem here. They say it's to make it better for
Mm.
TV. No, it's to make it better for dumb viewers. Because, oh, he needs an army to take the Stone of Tyr. No, he had an accidental army to take the Stone of Tyr, or a fated army, I will say, to take the Stone of Tyr, because he was fulfilling the prophecy without trying, because without trying is the way you do it.
That's
And
that's a
and
really good point
yeah, this is not to make it better for TV. This is to make it better for dumb viewers.
because there's a scene in this episode that is a,
Oh
a
no,
couple of times
let
the
me make it better. It's to make it better for writers that are too dumb to write the
yes,
good part of it. Yeah.
thank you. It's
Even when they have source material.
oh, it's the same obnoxious. Well, America just isn't ready for stories with, minority leads. Bull crap. You're just too dumb and crappy to make them. We talked when we watched it, and it was great. I loved the first episode so much I bought the DVDs of Lawman Bass Reeves because this is, as a Texahoman, as someone who knew the story well before I ever heard that they'd finally made a series about it. And you looked up and found that the lead actor, whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce because it's I think he's Nigerian and it's
Yeah.
yikes. Anyway, he had written the story and was shopping it around for 10 years
And Tyler
before.
Sheridan picked it up. And if
Mhm.
anybody doesn't know American media, anyways, Tyler Sheridan's the biggest name in
Right now,
producing
and
and directing right now.
primarily because he doesn't work within the Hollywood system. He is his own man. In much the same way that is how Tarantino has mostly been able to stay Tarantino, is because he doesn't do something unless he's got a project and it's his project. Well, point being, no, it's not that America doesn't want these stories, is you don't know how to tell the stories America wants.
Mm-hmm.
Because a former slave becoming a federal marshal in Indian territory is a hell of a story, and it's true. It's all true. The Bass Reef story is one of those things that you read and you go, this can't be real, and then you find out, oh no, it's actually real. You know, and same thing here. They don't know how to tell the story. They think the audience is as dumb as they are. So to your point, they talk a lot about the wheel and about it. Sawan has that moment where she brings in Nynaeve and Egwene in the first season, and she tells Nynaeve, what you want doesn't matter. You are part of the wheel, and there are bigger things than what you want. But these idiots don't know how to show that.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, Jordan brought a lot of moving pieces together in a way that was believable and dramatic because he was a hell of a lot smarter than you people, and you people have thrown out the work because it's problematic, because you don't like it, and because you think you're smarter than he is.
Yeah, and if you have an IQ above 85, uh, you're asking questions like, how come there's Aiel walking around Tarvalon with their spears on their back?
When the blood snow was just 18 years ago, and you think people might remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my big red flags of, okay, at first blush, it was idiotic, but I will give credit to the general story idea. Just from episode one, I thought they did a credible job of combining books 3 and 4. I was like, okay, what you're doing kind of makes sense. You have to condense the story because it's freaking huge. And even Lord of the Rings, which isn't as massive of a story as this is, it still required a lot of condensing because
No,
that's just how it goes
no,
from
because
book to
we keep
movie.
talking about having to make up for past mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
When we're in the waste here in a little bit, are they going to talk about Laymanson and the Aiel War? Well, they have to, because they've already done the baby born on Dragonmount. And the
Mm-hmm.
baby born on Dragonmount was because they were laying siege to Tarvalon. And so there had to be the Aiel War. And notice there were no other Aiel in that damn city in any of the scenes. There you go. How are you going to explain this? And if you're just a normie that's never read the books, you're like, oh, okay, we're setting something up here. But if you've read even book one, you're going, what the why aren't they being attacked right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This above all cities, well, second only to Karheen, is
Mm-hmm.
the place that is going to remember the Aiel War the most because
Okay,
it
so
ended
I
here.
might have to fast forward a second here.
But let's back up to the very beginning because I'm curious what
Okay,
you thought about, because one of the things I was getting to about the way the women look, um, Sawan looks ridiculous, but
they're trying to make her look
Leanne,
regretful. I get that,
mhm,
but they made her
mhm,
look old.
yes,
That's
black
the
isn't
difference.
supposed to crack, but she looks old.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
don't know if, okay, so that might be good if they're setting her up to be stilled
to
and then
fall
make the
in some way.
original
Yeah,
actress just the way she looks be the younger
maybe,
one, which
maybe.
could be that could be the setup there, which I would understand that. But I mean, she just looks like, yeah, they're trying to get you to have some sympathy for her,
Hmm.
but I don't have sympathy for her. She just looks old.
Much like I think the most extreme example of this actress is not just good looking, but hot, and her character is not, is Leanne. But that should be on purpose because when she was the keeper, she was very severe. She was very much not the Domini woman, young woman that she was originally raised to become. And she became Aes Sedai and she became the keeper. And she is very severe as keeper. And she changes into the seductress when she is stilled and has to find new skills, new tools for getting what she wants. So that could be, oh, hey, they're actually setting something up here, but we don't trust them to do it competently.
Okay,
For
so
instance,
oh, I
it
was going to say
opens up.
for some setting up, there is a message in that first scene
Yeah.
on oppression, uh, with the Reds. The Reds took the place of the oppressed in that first scene because remember the Red sitters weren't allowed to be in the room
Yes. And in
for
a way
Leanna's
that made
trial.
absolutely no sense.
But again, here's the message. So if you follow D'Angelo and Sanse and all of these Delgado, all of these SJW authors, then they come forward to try to help, and nobody will accept it because they are the minority, right?
Mhm.
And so there was a message thrown in there. I just didn't want anybody to miss that. That was purposeful. It was very blatant. It was very obvious if you've studied their literature. Yeah.
But having just rewatched episode one, they that is completely undercut because they make the point in episode one, setting up the Tower Schism, that the Greens just sided with the Reds, and that's a big effing deal because that is something from the books early on of when we finally get to the tower and we're hearing about how things are changing and the alliances are shifting and Sawan might not be as secure as she thinks she is. One of the big red flags is the Greens of all people are siding with the Reds. Well, now all of a sudden they're all together and blocking out the Reds. This makes no sense within your own world. This isn't me, the book fan, saying you suck. This is me looking at your own words saying, did you forget what you wrote in episode one?
Mm-hmm.
And then my very first note is the Ron Burgundy gif. Unfortunately, I don't have any corona of boy, that got out of hand. I mean, that really got out of hand. Because right off the bat, we start with Aes Sedai on Aes Sedai violence, except, and I didn't have a problem again with the idea. It's the execution. You have to fast forward things, you have to condense things. Let's combine the Tower Politics schism and the Black Ajah and make the little mini civil war. Let's instigate it with the Black Ajah rather than Tower Politics because we can do that quicker and easier. Okay,
Yeah, but
fine.
what I didn't get out of that
Except
was that Swan was deposed.
she's not yet.
Yeah,
Clearly not.
exactly. If anything, that whole scene solidified her position because she exposed the
Exactly.
yeah.
The only thing I can think, and it's a blink and you miss it, but later on when Egwene goes through the accepted test, it's Sawan, Leanne, and the third Aes Sedai there is Alviarin.
I did notice that, yeah.
So not all the Black Ajah have gone. They're still going to be scheming. They could use the hey, you failed because you allowed the Black Ajah to grow and fester, and they even attacked you. But that would be a hard sell. It's hold on, you need me now more than ever. And I was literally attacked. I'm a heroine. Look, I took wounds. I was almost killed. What I thought was going to happen, but silly me, this made sense. So obviously it didn't. Remember, so later on, she's running through the streets by herself because clearly the Emerillion frickin' seat doesn't have warders and an army at her beck and call. So
Which
she's
Swan in the books did have a warder.
exactly.
Yeah.
when she's blindsided by those two Black Ajah, I thought they were gonna still her. I thought that's what
Okay,
was
yeah,
about to happen.
I do like the way they portrayed the shielding, that it was a total body thing. That was actually kind of cool. I did like that.
And because of what they were doing to her, I thought, ooh, are they about to still her? Because that would make sense. Because she's stilled. She doesn't have to be deposed. You don't even have to get into the politics of it. It's just she can't be a Marilyn anymore. She's not Aes Sedai anymore. But no, they didn't do that because they're idiots. But backing up, the big problem with all right, you want to start off with a bang, and you kind of literally do that with the hall being blown up as the Black Ajah are attacking the hall while it sits. I don't know who any of these people are, and I don't care. So you've got Aes Sedai sitters literally being cut in half, and we've talked a little bit about how in the last battle in the book, people start dropping like flies, and sometimes it's a shame because you wanted a moment there, but Jordan did that on purpose
Well,
because he wanted the shock value. But you
well,
still knew who those people were.
yeah, it's about the quickness. So they were looking for you to be emotionally engaged by it, but you have to set up character, and you can just have gore for quickness. And it was a very much, remember the opening scene of Ghost Ship where it's a flashback to all the people on the cruise and they're dancing, and something happens and the cable breaks.
I don't think I ever saw that.
Oh, okay. Well, spoiler alert, the cable breaks and it shoots a cable across everybody dancing and basically kills a whole bunch of people at once. And then I don't know what happens to the rest of the crew because they never explained that in the movie. But the ghost ship is haunted because of big events like this, and so, but it was a very shock thing. You have a cable going across, and it was very. Uh, it wasn't a horrible movie, but this scene bothered me because you'd have one guy getting sliced across the face, and his half of his head would fall off, and then a girl getting cut across the waist, and she would fall over half. I'm like, wait, what's the height of this cable? Because the guy was taller than the girl, and he got it face, and she got it in the waist. But that's what it reminded me of, because it was just like, let me shock you at the beginning.
Mm,
Okay, let me talk about a movie that did it right, Saving Private Ryan.
mm.
That's a movie that did it right, right? Because it was the opening scene that made you just like, holy shit, what the hell am I getting myself into for the next 2.5 hours?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and that was aided by the fact that you cast someone well known and loved in Tom Hanks as the main character. So even if you don't know the character, they're cheating a little bit because you know the actor.
Well, but also they're picking a moment people can identify with,
Yeah.
because
Well, I take that
we've
back.
all yeah, we've all heard the history of
Yeah.
the Normandy landing and all that.
I take that back. He does set it up because he fakes you out at the beginning with the fade from old guy at the
Hmm.
Normandy cemetery, and he looks down and then he looks up and then it changes to Tom Hanks. So he makes you think initially that the old man at the cemetery is going to be Tom Hanks. So there actually is a connection there in the movie that I had forgotten about to to draw you in emotionally.
Yeah,
And
and
you
so what this show did is try to shock you into being into the episode,
yes.
is what it did.
But then it takes you out of it with the nonsense. So, for instance, my next note is how the hell is Leandrin still alive? She gets stabbed in the chest, pretty much directly on either side of her heart, with two swords. And somehow she's not dead.
Because she was healed by Chesmel.
How was she alive long enough for Chesmel to heal her?
But details, man, details. Don't get lost in the details.
On
I,
top
I
of
do
that,
like how they started shouting out names of the Dark Friends so you would know
yes,
who they were.
yes,
It's the tell instead of show, kind
yeah,
of thing.
yeah. Well, and then my next note is, of course, they killed the black guy bigots, but the point
The gay
being,
black guy. The gay black guy. Because remember, gay black men are the new straight white men.
Yvonne dies immediately
That should have been Clifton Duncan, you know.
By taking a sword to the
That way
I
they can
guess
finally be rid of him because he's not woke.
I guess if you should post this episode on X and tag him in it as it should have been you. But he takes a sword through the solar plexus
No, because that
and
can be
dies
seen as a
immediately.
call to action.
Well, maybe. But but Leandra
Do
took
not
two
clip us,
swords
please.
to the
We're not
chest
famous enough to be clipped.
and is alive to is alive long enough to be healed. Now, there were a few times where I thought, "Oh my gosh, are they
Well,
going to
my
kill
thing
off?"
is, two of the baddest ass warders in the warder dumb didn't hit the heart. You had two chances. It wasn't that one missed. You had two chances.
The only and it was less because I cared and more because I thought upon rewatching season one, we kept talking about uh Lanfear and Ishi and how good those actors do. And then we forgot, oh wait, Leandrin, yeah, she was great too. And she really was really good in season one. And I thought, are they gonna kill off one of their only few good actors? And oh no, not only are they not gonna kill off Leandrin, but they're gonna do it in the most contrived, stupid way possible. Which even you know that's the particular in that fight, but the meta of that fight, the macro of that fight is we're told Alana is strong, but we just saw this group of black sisters annihilate the sitters of the hall and a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of warders. And Alana's going to stand up to all six or seven, however many of them there were when she encounters them in the street. She's going to stand up to all of them by herself.
Hey, this is a Power Rangers episode. Don't get caught in the details. They're gonna dance around and do backflips while the one is fighting the Power Ranger, you
Yeah.
know. Uh yeah, I'm gonna let you finish on this because my next big note is in all caps and it's when we get with Matt again. So
Well, okay. I think I know where we're going with this. When we leave that and we go back to the kids, I don't even remember who says it. I think it's Egwene. Wherever we go, we do it together. That was actually a good line from the right person. And it actually made sense because of what they went through together in season two to come out on the other side stronger together. So, oh my gosh, wow, you did something good. Now you're immediately going to undo it because by the end of this episode, they're all splitting off. But
yeah,
whatever.
but I think they made good sense of that of how that happened. So
Yes.
that's not one of my big complaints because they needed that to happen to fix a lot of past mistakes, but also for some storyline things.
But if they would have
But
spent a little less time on the nonsense, then you would have felt that more. There should have been more emotion to I thought we were going to stay together, but we can't, right? There should have been some more time to feel the emotion of that separation when you set up at the beginning of the episode, whatever happens, we stay together because, hey, remember what we just went through.
yeah, well, and even just one little additional line, like we've only just now reunited.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
We just, it feels like we just got back together and now we're separating it, whatever. Just a one little line can do a lot if it's delivered at the
well,
right time in the
and
right way.
especially if they had that scene with that one little line, then cut away to another scene where a bunch of stuff happened, and then come back to the scene where they're all together again and they go out to party, right? So even if you had separated that a little bit, it would have been better. But to have it all at once, it's just like you just
Mm.
kind of lose it, and
All right. So
it's
what's
like
your all caps? Because I'm wondering if it is what my next note is.
when they go and they're having the paintings done of themselves and the drawings done of
Yes.
themselves, and Matt is holding the horn of
Yes.
Valir in
Yes.
front of everybody,
Talking loudly about how he
talking
sounded it.
and basically begging for attention.
My note
Okay,
is
my note is it's like Sanderson wrote Matt. Holy fucking fuck, posing with the horn of Valir.
mine was more specific, which was Why is Matt walking around with the horn and not getting stabbed?
There is that.
Everyone in this world knows what that is. Everyone knows what the horn is. It's one of the favorite tales when for Gleeman to tell. And there's a
And there
whole
had to be hunters
epic
for the
cycle of it.
horn in that big ass town that would be the place where you might find the horn.
Yeah. Yeah. Um
That and it's not a very impressive horn for being the horn of
it
Valir.
looks dumb besides looking cheap like so many of the other
They could have at least
props and
made it look
effects.
like the little signal for the horn that's in the books. It could have been one of those little curly trumpets, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, why does it look so dumb?
It's postmodern, my friend.
Oh, okay,
It's
fine,
modern
whatever.
art.
Um
Okay, let me cross that one out so I don't bring that up again because it made me so mad.
I
I miss the old actor from Matt, and that's saying a lot because I hated season one. And I hate what Sanderson did with Matt,
yeah. So
and I hate what the show has done with Matt.
I didn't really agree with you until I rewatched season one and I realized, oh, before I forget, because yeah. So I realized things, two actors that I'd overlooked, and that it was Matt in season one is so very rarely Matt that I think I was too hard on the actor. But there are several times where I call out Barney Harris by name and say kudos to him for this scene. So one of them is the morning after Beltane when Perrin walks in with his stupid dead wife that he shouldn't have and lays her down with all the other dead bodies, and there's no line. Matt just reaches over and puts a hand on Perrin's shoulder, and Barney Harris does a tremendous job of acting without speaking, which is one of the hardest things to do in acting. You know, he doesn't say a word, but you know exactly what he's saying. So kudos to him. The other thing I noticed is I think we need an honorable mention of we've got Ishi, Lanfear, and Leandrin. I think Daniel Henney as Lan needs an honorable mention. I think he's the Timothy Dalton of this series. I always thought Timothy Dalton was a great Bond. His movies were crap.
Hmm.
Daniel Henney does a lot of work with terrible content. So, and it gets worse in the second season. I remember that. I don't remember all the details of the
Yeah,
second season, but I
I
remember
think
it gets even
I
worse.
think where I lose it with him is he is a very modern Western uh
Yes.
actor trying to be stoic, and you can see that because he's not probably not stoic in his real life.
Yes.
So you
His
yeah.
biggest problem and why he's an honorable mention and not up there with those other three is he's not consistent.
Hmm.
Mostly in his line
That
delivery.
might be directing though, because remember they
Mhm,
forced
mhm.
him to be emotional a few times.
That's true.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of times where he is uh because he he gives when he speaks, he has very short lines because he's Lan, but he does good work with what he's given, and he's not given much. Um,
My next big note is Elaine and Avienda, but
oh
not the
gosh,
scene we're talking, not the scene you're thinking of.
well
It's a little thing that if you blink you miss it, and
okay, well
it made me just want to.
I'm curious because they do set up this thing later, kind of, and I was worried about it. I was like, where are you going with this? You know, it reminded me of Mass Effect 3. One of the reasons I hated that game is because they would railroad you into think stupid decisions for stupid reasons. Like there is one of your crew members in Mass Effect 3 is gay, and so if you're playing a male shepherd, you can romance him. Except the way they give the choices, if you're just trying to be nice to the guy, you end up making out. And I was like, are
Dragon
y'all
Age does
pulling a
the
Mass
same
Effect
thing.
3? Is
Yeah,
that what
yeah.
we're doing here? Are we just
That
going to be nice and all of a sudden we're making out or
that's
what?
one of the pet peeves about the romances in modern video games is because if you're a dude, you basically fall into the romance with the other guy. And if you're trying to romance the girl, you have to work your ass off for it.
Mm,
So, that's even one of the backdraws of Baldur's Gate. I love Baldur's Gate 3 for so many reasons, but when the romance goes, it's like you have to
so
like try not to. You have to be a dick to not be in a romance with one of the other
right, and
dudes.
I very naively, optimistically thought maybe they're just setting up the first sister thing. Maybe
That's
that's all they're doing here.
That's what I was hoping for. But okay, so this one actually supports that a little bit, where Elaine talks to her with the hand talk,
Yeah.
and Avienda looks back at her, and this is the thing you might have missed. I have a quote here from from the. Sorry, I'm having trouble not laughing when I'm reading this. Elaine, you already have a look of the Aiel. Be careful, because she's bright-eyed, light
Oh my
hair,
gosh.
pale skinned, from the actress playing an Aiel who is black.
Or half seas probably because
Well, yeah,
she's very pale
I think
skinned.
she's indigenous Australian or something.
Mm.
But at the same time, either way, it's like they're saying it out loud that there is a look for this specific demographic.
They did it in season one. Remember when we find the Aiel that we think is setting up the Aiel being on this side of the spine, when Matt and Rand go to the random town where they find Tom and the dude's in the cage dead, and Tom makes the point, and then later Loyal makes the point of an Aielman who doesn't think he's an Aielman, and now we have freaking Bane and Chia. They went out of their way to, oh, those actually look like Aiel. Those are tall women. They have the right hair. They have the right complexion. And now we're going to throw this person in here and say, yeah, she's part of the same
Yeah,
tribe.
she's the main character. She has to be
What?
ethnic.
Yeah.
And in they have a line in the show that freaking was like, uh,
Well, one of my notes is it goes along with this. It's just an example of how shallow this series is because how shallow the people writing and producing it are. And it's when Varen is talking to Moraine and she's basically giving her the, hey, you can make all the plans you want, but the wheel's going to weave as it wills. You know, you think you're controlling Rand, but Rand's the dragon, not you, which is something that Varen would say. It's
mhm.
something she did say more or less, right? And something Moraine had to learn the hard way, and theoretically in this season will learn the hard way because we're going to Rudine. But the problem is, yes, she's being wise and she's saying wise things, but that's it. What makes Varen such a great character, even though she's a small character, but the reason she's such a fan favorite
I
is the
wouldn't call her a
mystery.
small character.
In course of impact, no. In light of screen time, yes. She is relatively minor in terms of page time,
Hmm.
but she punches way above her weight class, right?
Yeah. I judge in memorability. Yeah.
And one of the reasons for that is the mystery. Is there's something going on there, and we desperately want to know what. And my gosh, I mean, we spent a long time on it when we got there in the book because it's one of my all-time favorite scenes, and Jordan pays it off. All this setup that we have been wondering since book two. We get to Knife of Dreams, and Jordan nails the landing big time. There's no landing here. This is a very shallow character. There's no mystery. There's just so what should be wisdom that has weight is just exposition. And so it falls, it's like, okay, yeah, fine. That
Yeah,
that was fine. Whatever.
basically
Let's
she's
move
the
on.
Bale Doman of the series.
Yeah.
We need a
um
bridge. Let's go.
the
Okay, so one other thing in that same conversation, which was you could tell it was written a few years ago. She goes into an expose on peaceful transfer of power is always preferable to it's like
oh
yeah.
yeah. Um
Like where did those words
yeah.
come from? Yeah, we got the propaganda going here.
So put a pin in that because before we get there, I will say positively in the tavern scene with the boys. I don't know if this is a change in direction or if it's the actor maturing. But my comment on the tavern scene, my note was, at least Perrin isn't acting like he rode the short bus to get there. Because infamously, your analogy to who Perrin was in season one was he's Lenny from Mice and Men.
Yeah, that's not where I have it, but I actually have a good parent scene coming up here in a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah.
So yeah, he's got a fro bigger than Reggie Jackson's, and it's not even playoff time, but at least he's starting to act more like you would expect Perrin to act. Um, they even get in a good bit of I'm no leader. I'd follow you and Matt anywhere. Yeah, it'd probably lead me into trouble, but I'd follow you and Matt anywhere. I'm no leader. They don't dwell on it. It's just, that was decent. And then you ruin it by huzzah, we get Lanfear, one of the bright spots in this whole series.
And she was fantastic in that scene with Moraine too.
Except, why is she having a pleasant chat with Moraine? It's like, what the hell is
I
going
thought,
on
well,
here,
this is
guys?
this is the problem with it because I thought the way she pulled it off had Moraine acted scared, it would have been correct. But
Yes.
she acted petulant.
Yes.
And
It
that's where it threw me off. If Moraine was like, holy hell, that would have been perfect. But you had one person acting like she's the shit, which Lanfear would do.
mhm.
Domineering, she's the dominatrix in that relationship, in that conversation, and coming in and just being like, this is the way we're going to do things. And you want the same things I do right now. So let's freaking do it. It's the old mob, the old mafia conversation.
Not only
And
that, but
Maureen was trying to be like, well, I don't think so.
yes, she has to. We'll get to more of this, but she has to girl boss it. Moraine is the main character of the show.
Mm-hmm.
That is the biggest problem with season one is that Rand is it doesn't matter that you were trying to maintain the mystery of who's the dragon. It didn't matter who the dragon was because Moraine is the main character of season one. Not any of the kids, not Rand, who's supposed to be the main character, not even potentially one of the others from Two Rivers who you're trying to tease could be the main character. Moraine's the main character. And so they can't have her. And again, this is a great example of how it's you, the writers aren't as smart as you think you are, because if Jordan had written this scene, I suspect perhaps one way it would have played out is Moraine would have said and done almost nothing. Why? Because after Lanfear leaves, in a moment with Lan, she could reveal this is 1,000-year-old Aes Sedai who I know almost nothing about. I don't dare give her the slightest crack into me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't dare reveal anything because I don't know what I'll give away.
Yeah, and this is where I wonder if this is one of those scenes. I wonder if it's actress or director, because as you pointed out, she has to be the star.
Yes.
But one person in that scene was doing their job. Was the other person doing their job? Because
I
if she was doing her job, she did it poorly. Or if she was not doing her job, she acted poorly. But if she was doing her job, she did it just right.
I assume
And
that is what writer, director, actress all wanted because of how she is in season one, especially of no, this is who she was all through season one.
mm-hmm.
So she's going to stand. And from what I remember of season two, she does even stand up to Lanfear when she shouldn't and couldn't, you know, from not just from the book, but the way they set Lanfear up in the series of how scary Lanfear's supposed to be. And yet, to your point, she's not acting scared. And she could be scared without showing that she's scared. In fact, we get that in the books a number of times that you find out after the fact, Moraine says, no, I was terrified, but she's not going to let it show.
Yeah,
But they don't have the subtlety to pull that off.
I almost wonder if uh you could have had the best of both worlds if she tried to boss bitch it and Lanfear like caught her in a weave
Mhm.
and Lan in a weave and said, "Look, enough with this child's play," which is how Lanfear would have talked
Yes,
because
yes.
Moraine would be a child compared to her. Enough of this child's play. We both want the same thing, and then go through the same exact dialogue. And Moraine could have been petulant and resistant, but behind a barrier of some kind. And
Mhm.
you know,
Um,
that could have fixed the whole problem. You could have had but the best of both worlds in that situation.
uh, we get a scene with Lan and Nynaeve that's mostly good. I noticed this in season one as well. Is um Henny and Robbins both are best when they're with each other. Um, I don't know how much of that is writing, how much of it is just their chemistry, working together or what. But Nynaeve and Lan's best moments are when it's just the two of them, and it's because you actually get to see human beings and you get to at least start to get invested in them, and also because it's the only two times they're the most like their actual characters from the book is just when it's just the two of them. And then we get to the Elaine Avienda thing where I was, WTF are they doing with Elaine and Avi? And we'll get to that in a second.
Well, no,
um
before that was Egwene going through the rings.
oh gosh, yes.
First of all, there's just one ring. Apparently, we just get to see one ring of the accepted testing. And then she's like, "Oh, I'm accepted. I can do whatever I want." What the?
Yes, yes,
Unless they're conflating. I
yes.
mean, is there any indication that once you're accepted, you're like an Aes Sedai?
No,
No, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, we do see some people that I think are supposed to be accepted, acting kind of like servants ish and doing more than they should be doing as people who are still girls, kids who are still students. But Egwene, just this is where the big girl boss moment comes in. She girl bosses and straight up back talks the freaking Emerald seat
hmm
and the keeper and another full Aes Sedai to their face and just walks off with zero repercussions. What even is the tower? If there are no rules, if there are no decorum, if there's no hierarchy, how are we supposed to be invested in the slightest in anything that is happening with the Emerald seat? This is a hollow authority figure.
hmm
You have completely gutted Sawan as an authority figure. And so now, when she is finally, however they depose her, however they're going to manage to do that, yeah, because she was
You deserve
pathetic.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but
Maybe they
before we
modeled
get
her after Biden. I don't know.
um before we get there though, or actually it's intercut because I think Egwene's Arches scene takes place a couple of times. Um,
No, no. Oh, yeah. No, no. My note was made after she walked out, and it's before what
yes,
you were getting to. So,
okay,
yeah.
but uh, that's just more fuel to the insufferable Egwene that nobody likes except apparently the idiots who wrote this. No doubt Egwene was their favorite character. Egwene and Moiraine. Um,
And apparently, Matt.
oh yeah. So you do get that
Apparently,
little
Sanderson's version of Matt.
Sanderson's version of that. Yeah, good
Yeah.
point. You referenced this earlier. That little moment that I thought was pretty good of Elaine teaching Rand, like Elaine taught Rand, and
hmm
like makes sense for someone who you have set up as a princess.
Yeah, I thought that was a good TV adaptation if you're going to go out of order. Yeah.
What I couldn't recall though was did they do anything in season two to set up any kind of relationship with between Rand and Elaine?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I didn't think they met until Falm when Rand was a little busy. So all you have are vague references that Falm was a month ago. That's all you have is vague references that Falm was a month ago, and that's how they're all friendly and know each other.
Mm-hmm.
So you've done nothing to set this up,
Well,
but then
you didn't set
also,
it, you didn't set up the Elaine Avienda friendship up at all either,
mhm.
because all it is Egwene saying, "Oh, Avienda likes Elaine," or for some reason, and yeah.
um, they're also, I don't know, again, because we're speculating here, as we did with the end of season two, where we looked and said, wait a minute, are they trying to set up Perrin and Avienda? Well, okay, apparently not. But it
Well,
seemed
especially
like,
since I saw there was a casting for Fayo.
yeah,
So yeah.
but it seemed like they were trying to set up Matt and Min, Perrin and Avienda, and then
Mhm.
leave Elaine for, so separate the girls, because that, a dude having three chicks would be very problematic. Um, if they're still going to try and have an Elaine Rand thing, which I could actually see them doing, because I feel like they would like the way the sister wife thing works, because the women are the ones who control things in the Aiel, sort of control things in that way, because the women are the ones who make the decision of whether or not you marry.
Yeah, except we're going to go to Rob Henderson's luxury beliefs. This is the academia versus real life, where they're like, oh, people can do this and people can do that and da 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 da. Oh, you don't need to get married, or you don't need, you can have kids without a father around and all this stuff. And then if you ask the academic, oh, do you plan on staying married to your husband who you have a child with? Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is the imaginary. This could be acceptable because they don't live in that world. They're thinking this is a big misconception about uh polyamorous relationships and things like that is they're trying to make it a tryst where the girls love each other and the guy loves the girls and the da 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 and probably they're going to bring in another guy that loves the guys and da 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 da. Yeah, so they're putting up they set it up with the Alana thing where the dudes loved each other but the dudes also loved her and she loved the dudes and it that's not how it works in most of these relationships in across the world. No, it's usually a dynamic where the women are communal together, but the guy is providing. Where in the Wheel of Time, the guy was who he was, and it got his attention got spread in three different directions for reasons that actually helped the world, and they accepted each other, and they were friends with a degree of I don't know, tension. I'll say with tension. And even Elaine and Avienda as first sisters was not exactly what you would call lovers. They wouldn't even want to be in the same room at that time.
The only even slight hint that I think we ever get, that, all right, so, any guy reading The Wheel of Time, you're going to get to the sister wives thing, and you're going to get to Rand's three chicks, and you're going to suddenly become what's his face from Office Space. Three chicks at once. I bet with $1 million I could make that happen. But that's not their relationship. They share Rand and they are friendly with each other. The only slight hint we ever get that there might be some giggity giggity is with Rourke and his two wives, with the way they greet each other. But
Mm-hmm.
even that could just be a guy reading into it, because women are more emotional and more what's the word I'm looking for, Mr. Psychiatrist? They express they more freely express their emotions. So two women embracing each other affectionately, two dudes are going to look at that and go, huh, huh, huh. But they could just view each other like sisters.
Well, and also the act of doing it is an act of this thing is still equal between us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is Amos the wise one, and I can't remember Rourke's other wife, the hold mistress. It's, they have their own spheres, but they also have great affection for each other, and now they're, after a long separation, they're back together.
Mm-hmm.
So
But that
um
they use a term, sister wives. They
but
embrace each other like sisters.
but the point being, I'm wondering if they're still going to try and set that up with Elaine and Aviendha
They
or
are, but in a
not,
modern butchering
but
bastardization
in a modern
version.
kind of way.
Yeah.
Exactly. I will say when we're
I say a
being
modern kind of way, a modern out of touch kind of way.
um credit where it's due, because I've mentioned before that I actually saw what's his face. I'm brain farting on the actor's name. Uh Stradowski. In Need for Speed, he was good because he's playing a douchebag. And apparently he plays it very naturally and well. Um I thought he played crazy pretty good too. In Egwene's Vision in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Arches, Mad Rand was a good Mad Rand. And
Which might be important later. Yeah.
which might be important later because angry Rand, bow to me. Okay, are you actually doing something here? All right, but now let's take a few steps back because we always do. Um, there's a scene where Moraine and Rand are butting heads like they do in the books. The problem is, as always, in the books there was actually setup. This this conflict should be a bigger deal because this is Rand growing up. The problem is, again, having just rewatched season one, he's literally doing it from the very beginning. And back to the writers aren't nearly as clever as they think they are, and they're throwing out their source material because they think they're smarter than RJ. When Rand first starts to kind of sorta question Moraine, it's very tepidly, very deferential. Or sometimes he's not even questioning her directly. It's he's sitting there with Matt and Perrin and Egwene and later Nynaeve. And I mean, what are we doing here? How much can we trust her? What's going on? And all of a sudden she's standing behind them going, yeah, I'm in charge. Get on your horses. Let's go. So there's no buildup here. This butting of heads in this scene in this episode is pretty much identical from episode two.
I thought it was
Season one, episode two.
I thought it was reminiscent of their butting of heads in the grotto, the canyon at the beginning of book 3.
Yes,
And
yes,
so
yes.
so, so that's where I saw the book reference there, and even though they're doing a bad job of it, I appreciate that they're trying to bring in the book. So as advertised, it's going to be the most book
Mm-hmm.
accurate version, uh, but book accurate in a way that's in a deficit already from the previous couple seasons.
In
And
large
that
part
that to
because
me
of this
was
lack of setup.
that
Yeah.
scene in but in a different place.
Well, so I just rewatched, and so remember episode two when they get to their first little camping spot after they cross Terran Ferry and they have the dreams and all that, and Rand blows up on Moraine and is really accusatory and assertive and kind of in her face in episode two after all you just saw, and you're supposedly a farm boy from nowhere. So you can play these two scenes, that one from episode two and this one from season three, episode one. It's the same damn scene.
Hmm.
So that's why it falls flat because there's no build.
Yeah, because there would have been a dynamic if it was I trusted you, I trusted you, I trusted
Yeah.
you, I trusted you. Now I see you're trying to push me.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
My
and then
next
we
note's at the bubble of evil.
well, my next note is Elaine saying finally, and well, at least these lesbos are less cringe and super hot. So huzzah, progress. But
Yeah.
then we don't actually show any. Actually, that was one of
I
my
don't think
thoughts.
either of those actresses are hot.
They're good
I
looking.
mean,
They're
Elaine on a slow night would be doable, but
oh,
yeah,
compared to the last cringe lesbo scene we got though.
yeah.
I mean, come on. But again, this is on the macro. This is so bizarre to me because I noticed more in episode one. I don't think I noticed as much, or maybe I was watching other things and I didn't comment on it. Um, the effects are pretty crappy, but there's a lot of body horror and gore in season one that would make this a hard R, and yet you barely have any nudity. The only little bit you have is when Moraine meets with the blue sitter in the spa,
Mm-hmm.
and you get a little bit of side boob and then some fuzzy in the background old boobs. Well, why am I bringing this up? Because Bezos's whole conceit, Mr. Super Narcissistic Bond villain, he told Prime Video, I want my Game of Thrones. And not because he thought it was good, not because he thought it was compelling, not because he thought it was good art. He wanted the prestige of it. And so supposedly that's why they got Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings the rights, because Lord of the Rings was supposed to be Game of Thrones but family friendly.
Mm.
Wheel of Time was supposed to be Game of Thrones, except you're doing almost none of that. You don't even get the titillation, pun intended.
Well, you made it more gay.
Way more gay.
Yeah.
But even then, you don't have the balls, pun intended, to show it. We don't. The one time we kind of see there's some canoodling going on between I don't even remember what's the white dude's name, because I don't think it's the name of Alana's other warder that died. Yvonne is the warder that actually lives, the one she has when she's in the Two Rivers. And her second warder had been killed before Perrin gets there, and I don't even remember his name. But them and Alana, when Nynaeve kind of sort of walks in on them in season two, and it's totally PG. So you don't even have the balls to go all in on that either. We're gonna make it super gay, but we're gonna make it super PG gay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You guys are worthless. Um, do you have do you have anything before we get to the scene between Rand and Egwene after Egwene's accepted test?
No.
Okay, I credit where it's due, and I wouldn't have noticed this except I just rewatched season one. We actually get a callback because you can at least tell me if it was good or bad, is exactly what he says after her stupid hair braid get shoved in the river thing. I'm not allowed to talk about it. It's just for it's women's business is
Mm-hmm.
basically what she tells him when he asks how'd it go, and he says you can at least tell me if it's good or bad. I was like, oh my gosh, I'll call back. What do you know? Um, the problem is now this is looking forward and scratching my head, and the reason I wonder if they're still going to do Rand's women is Rand and Egwene were already done by this point. You're not only not starting to separate them, you're making them stronger. Are they
Yeah,
actually going to keep Rand and Egwene together for the whole series?
they're adding an element that I think was a message. Again, another message in
Oh,
there
jeez.
because they're trying to bring awareness and destigmatize the past trauma. Because notice when he put his hand on her cheek, and
Yeah.
all she could think about was being choked by her soul dam, right? So it's I was abused as a child, or I was sexually assaulted one time in college, and now I can't have good relations with men at all because every time they touch me, I can't help but think about anything like that. Which I'm not downplaying that. That is a big thing, but at the same time, you have to use positive relationships as a form of cognitive behavioral therapy. And they're trying to play on that from a victim standpoint. And they're trying to put that on the screen. And it's very clumsy, but it's there.
It also is something of a red flag because, okay, so with what you might possibly be trying to set up here with his duties as the dragon plus the madness, and then with her past trauma, they're not their relationship is going to be in trouble, right? But then how do either of them go to someone else?
Mm-hmm.
By building them up so much, you're going to make it less believable when they break, and you're going to make it even more unbelievable that they then attach to someone else.
Well, I'm going to take it to another level too, though, because it's very shallow. By sexualizing it and making it a relationship issue, how are you going to translate this to the positive effects that it had on Egwene in the book series
Mm.
in never being controlled
Yes.
by other people again? How are you going to do that with Rand because he's never trying to control her?
Especially in the series as compared to the book. He's extra ally in the series
Mm-hmm.
of, you know, I mean, I'd forgotten that actually, uh, geez, actually, no. Okay, I know how they're going to do it because they kind of teased it with the season preview at the end of this episode. And I made this note snarkily, but I actually think they're going to break up because of land fear. And my note at the end of episode 8, the last episode of season 1, was remember when he's confronting Ishi in what is almost certainly the dream world.
Mm-hmm.
And when Ishi says, "What are you doing? Why are you rejecting this? You know, this is what you want, this perfect life." What Rand says is, "That's not the woman I love because I want this, but I know she doesn't." So he's extra simpy, which makes it extra hard of how you're going to break them up. But my snarky note was, now let me run off and shack up with some rando hottie, because that's the when next we see Rand at the beginning of season 2, he's run off and shacked up with some random hottie after defying what and who he thought was the Dark One. We knew, and we find out pretty early on in season 2, no, that was Ishi. But Rand thought he was defying the Dark One because how much he cared for Egwene and what she wanted. Now let me go shack up with some random hottie. So what you're telling us is that simp allies are fake assholes. Or am I wrong there?
I thought they did an okay job of, yeah, the transition was bad, but I thought they did an okay job there of using the power of Celine as a seductress to pull that off. But yeah, you're right about the exit going into the opening scene. Again, it's just something that they just kind of do, and then they expect you to get it
Mm-hmm.
and know it. So
Um, okay. The interaction between Nynaeve and Matt. You know,
okay, so
maybe
right
that,
before the bubble, yeah, yeah.
yeah, this is when the bubble is just about to start. Is they have this moment together, and then Matt's looking down at the cards, and the cards start to move, and
This
I
is
went, "Oh,
this
hey,
is
bubble of evil."
completely contrived
Yeah,
in order to keep Matt at the tower.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Which again, I think this was an okay job of fixing something that was messed up already.
Also, again, back to the look, you've got to cut things, you've got to condense. If you decide, you know what, the snakes and the foxes are just too much, we're just going to Easter egg it by having them playing the snakes and the foxes. We're not actually going to have the doorways, which I don't know how you do that with what is theoretically going to happen to Moraine at the end of this season. And he's gonna, but anyway, if you want to cut that out, or at least mostly out for
Yeah, my note
time's
was they're
sake.
bypassing the doorways. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. The memories come from the horn. Uh, okay.
Apparently.
Um, the the biggest problem with that
They
scene,
didn't even make it a combination of the horn and the dagger, which is in the books, we get a
that's a good
combination of
point.
the horn and the doorways because he had holes in his memory and he asked for those holes to be filled.
That's a good point. Um, yeah, we get no after effects of the dagger really, except ominous. Oh, is he going to choose the dark? Setup in the brief clips we see of him after.
Well, Peyton Fane has it though, because we got that at the end of season one, but we haven't seen it since.
No, no, but I mean with Matt, we didn't really see any. Moraine tells Rand to keep a close eye on Matt, but then I don't ever remember seeing any after effects of it, which was a big deal. To your point, it was a big deal in
What
the books because
when he walks away at the gateway at the end of
yeah,
book
that's
book one series one.
yeah. If anyone remembers season two better than I do, I don't know if they address it there because he walks away and then we get this very brief, ominous, dude in a hood walking towards the White Tower, and it looks up and you know, it's Matt, and it's when Moraine is giving a letter to Agomar's sister or telling Agomar to send word to the Red Hajjah to keep a lookout for Matt Cawthon. And then that's what sets up him being locked up in the
Imprisoned,
White
yeah.
Tower at the beginning of season two. But otherwise, I don't think we see any lasting effects of the dagger. And to your point, how hard would it have been to
We
make
get
the
yeah,
combination
we
there?
get him brooding for a while till he blows the horn and says, "I was a hero after all."
Yeah, thanks for that. Anyway,
That's not even an exaggeration. That's almost better acting than the guy pulled off.
so back to the all right, your idea isn't terrible, but your execution sucks. Then Matt flat out basically tells you what the memories are of let's just jump right to it and give you the answer because it takes Matt a little while of thinking, and then it takes Jordan even longer because he was who he was to let the reader know that they were right in that these are memories of history. Matt just comes out and says it to Nynaeve. He
Mhm.
basically tells you what the memories are. You don't want to let it sit and stew for a while. You don't want to build up. Nah, I'm just gonna come.
We ain't
Nah,
got time for that.
I got time for that. We got shagging to do, and not show you any of it because we aren't actually as brave as we think we are. Um, the best part of that scene, though, and I said Lan and Nynaeve when they're together. Maybe it's really when any two people are together. I'm gonna try and keep that in the back of my mind going forward. Of maybe it becomes a big mess when it's a group because
Which is why they can't have Elaine and Avienda and Rand as a tryst. Get them.
what
I can handle two, but I don't know if Rand's ready for that.
I mean, one of the few times Perrin was tolerable in season one was when it was just him and Egwene. Or there's a scene where, as annoying as it was, of hey, where's Rain? The guy, the man who's supposed to be in charge of this. But when Ilya is talking to Perrin about the Way of the Leaf, it's one of the better scenes in the whole series. That whoever she was, I don't know her name because she doesn't have a big part, but the actress for Ilya just acts her ass off in that scene, and it's great. Um, this scene too, um, it kind of it ends with "Will you help me, Nynaeve?" and Nynaeve saying, "I don't know how, but I'll try." Those are both great lines of because it was delivered pretty well because there's a bit of hesitancy there of I need help, I don't want to ask for help, but like she says at the beginning, kind of setting it up of when the old wisdom died, I became your wisdom, Matt. I'm here to help, so she kind of sort of they do a somewhat decent job of trying to drag it out of Matt because Matt's not the kind to ask for help, at least not without some cajoling.
Maria Doyle Kennedy. That's the actress you're
Yeah.
thinking of. Yeah.
So she did a great job in that scene. It's just again glaringly obvious of hey, we're all the dudes. but it's also very much Nynaeve in the books and who you've set Nynaeve up to be here of I don't know how, but I'm going to try, you know? And then we get the bubble of evil. And
Yeah. Okay. So my first thought on the bubble of evil was this was actually a good parent scene in that actor specifically. Well, actually, the scenes that had him in it, because Loyal was really cool in that scene. The girls were cool in that scene. The Bane and Chide were
yeah.
cool in that scene, and Perrin was cool in that scene. The other two bubbles were kind of gay. Am I allowed to say that? We're kind of dumb. Oh, I just equated gay with them. They were kind of not up to par.
Well, the homos that write this show are dumb, as we've said ad nauseum and will continue to say. Um, the whole scene is dumb because, all right, with any scene in a book or a play or a show or a movie, there should be a point.
Hmm.
It should be advancing something.
Which,
And
which, which, yeah. Okay, so you're probably going to get to a bigger meta point, but just details of this. Okay, so the Rand scene, the Rands were coming out of the mirror, so that was kind of accurate-ish. Uh, the parent scene had the axe, but why was there an axe on a stump in the middle of a bedroom?
you might have a hatchet if you need to split your own kindling.
Yeah, because it made sense in the book
But
because it was his axe in his belt on the thing you hang your belt
yeah.
on for, yeah. But there
Does
was
he
an
even
axe on
have
a,
an axe? Because he does it through all of episode for all of season one. I'd forgotten that because he kills his so-called wife with one, and so he's not carrying it around.
oh, but we get closure
Does he
here
get?
because the axe cuts off his wedding ring here.
Yep, yep, yeah.
And
That was
somehow
one of
that
my
wedding ring is strong enough to stop the axe before it cuts his hand off. But
that was one of my last notes was, oh, good, you broke his wedding ring, so now he can go back to where he killed his own wife.
yep, because I thought of that as soon I thought of your message that you sent me yesterday.
Yeah.
As soon as that wedding ring was chopped off by the axe, I was like, oh, that answers Heath's question.
Yep.
Yep.
Because one of the things I texted, and this was, I believe this was episode two again, when they have their little blow up around the fire, is Perrin is sitting there staring at the fire, looking sad, because that's all this actor knows how to do. But you just killed his so-called wife, so of course he's going to be sad. But then he says to Egwene, "Do you think we'll ever get to go home?" Now that is a Perrin line. Perrin throughout the books, he just wants to go home. He just wants to be a blacksmith and live in the Two Rivers. Except this Perrin just had the worst trauma you could possibly inflict on a man occur. Why would he ever want to go back? Like I was ranting about this to my wife earlier, and I was like, if you died, I would have to move because I could not live in this house because it would just constantly remind me of you. Now, increase that exponentially to if I somehow accidentally caused your death, I couldn't live in this state. I don't even know where I'd go.
Yeah,
Right?
it's almost to the point of I couldn't live. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But oh, you just broke his wedding ring and now he's ready to go home? No.
Because patriarchy. It's only about the only reason he had any feelings for her is because he was married to her.
Ugh. Um, but so
I just
the
made that up, but it's probably accurate.
but it's probably accurate. So
Yeah.
the meta point though that I was getting to was okay, why did any of this happen? And you're especially scratching your head going, why is Moraine just sitting there? And oh yeah, because she has a deal with one of the frickin' Forsaken, which makes tons of sense. Um, but the whole point, because then they have another friendly chat.
We talked about this in our last episode. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. This is
not
what
so much.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Landfear was trying to push them out and separate them so that they could get what they wanted, which was Rand to seize Kalendor and not just fully proclaim himself as the dragon, but also have that weapon to use against the other Forsaken when they come after him. And so the whole point of the scene of that scene was, I don't remember who says it, but when they all come together after the bubble of evil, which I actually have a thought on that too, is somebody says, and I think it may be Rand, the Forsaken have found us. Dude, you were just standing on a street corner admiring someone painting you as the dragon while Matt was posing with the mother effing horn of Valir, getting his painting done. And oh my gosh, the Forsaken have found us. They must be extra moronic because boy, did it take them a while.
Well, and when you talk about source material, it's not only extra moronic, it is the opposite. Because the characters in the book had the sense to say, how are these paintings showing up everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
Why are there paintings of me fighting Baalzamon in the sky? I need to hide because of these paintings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So it was a super contrived moment to have action and drama that meant nothing so that you could get them to do something that was false anyway because no duh the Forsaken found you. You're not exactly trying to hide. Um, one of my final thoughts, one of my just overall conclusion notes was, like I said, the story condensing mostly makes sense and works. But for frick's sake, they're just hanging out in freaking Tarvalon and they can come and go as they please. If you were going to do this, why make it Tarvalon? Why aren't they somewhere else? Well, it's because for whatever reason you needed Moraine and Swan to have some moments together
Mm-hmm.
because you needed and wanted Nynaeve to be there when Leandrin was exposed. But it just makes no sense that they're just hanging out in Tarvalon. And I didn't even catch the thing about the Aiel because I was so busy yelling at them just hanging out on the street corner. But yeah, oh, and by the way, with three people dressed in full Aiel warrior garb inside the city that they besieged just 18 years ago.
Yeah, if you're thinking source material, the only city that would have made sense in of them just hanging out with no repercussions would have been Farmadi. I mean, because that's where nobody knows anybody and nobody can channel. That would have been the only city that would have made sense.
um,
I got two notes. This another scene with Lan and Nynaeve, and it irritated me because to your point, it was a good scene acting wise,
yeah,
but when he gave her his mother's ring,
yeah.
why did we change it from the ring of Malkyr to his mother's ring?
Mm-hmm.
So he can have a speech of how powerful a woman she was. That's the only reason. I give you my mother's ring because she was a powerful woman before of powerful women. Da, 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 da.
And you
And,
didn't even give Land the masculine moment of show this ring to any Borderlander and they will take a message to me, or Borderlander or Warder, and they will take a message to me no matter where I am in the world, and I
mhm.
will come for you. They did they could have had tried to have their cake and eat it too, but they're incapable of doing that. Of let's give this "I am woman, hear me roar" speech of how powerful the Valkyrie woman is, but also I'm a man and I'm your man, and I'm even though we're going to be separating, you know, I will be there for you if needed. They couldn't even give him that little bit of a moment
Mhm.
because they suck.
And my last one was the last scene with Mohidian and
Ugh.
I I'm sorry, I have to get the pronunciation thing out, but I'm pretty sure they mispronounced his name. Uh,
Jayachim,
yeah,
what did
she's
they
like
keep saying?
Jaiting, Jaiting, and I'm like, I think it's
Ugh.
Joaquin, but
Yeah,
yeah, I think he's from Tyr actually. But it's, I mean,
like Usquai, which is just whiskey with a twist. I think it's Joaquin,
well,
but pronounced slightly differently.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
yeah.
and I'm like, I thought you were Latinx, okay? Come on, you should be able to get Joaquin right. And but I'm intrigued a little bit and have a little bit of a hopeful, positive feel about that because in the books, Bor's Carradine was already a dark friend, but they made it clear he was being forced to do the things he didn't want to do. And I think they just kind of accelerated that to the dark forces people to do the things they don't want to do.
Hmm.
And he was actually and so I don't mind that change. And I didn't mind the acting in that scene, other than the mispronunciation of his name. But I'm curious to see where that's going to go because again, he's one of my favorite sub characters on the in the dark side, and I didn't. I thought he did a good job of displaying like a feeling of pain there, and I'm curious to see where that goes. I really am. So
I'm morbidly curious, pun intended, because I want to know what they're going to do with Moghidian. At first, I was like, what the heck? But then I thought, you know what? Having tying Gray Min to Moghidian, all right, again, back to story condensing. She's the spider. She works from the shadows. Okay,
yeah,
I can actually
I might think there's
see that.
a sneaky one in here. I think they're trying to think Moghedian is a gray man, and we're going to start seeing Samael or somebody else like that.
Well, that's what she's doing to Bors there. She's turning him into a gray man.
Oh, is that what she did?
That's what she's saying. Do
I
you
thought
want
she
to be
was turning him
gray?
like I thought she was turning him like they
No.
turn people in, turn the Ashaman.
She keeps asking him, "Do you want to be gray?" And then she
Mm.
turns him into a gray man. And that is so when Lanfear
Now I'm not
leaves.
as optimistic. Damn
So
it.
when
I missed that.
Lanfear and Moiraine butt heads and have their little conversation after the bubble of evil, Lan is, partially draws his sword because Nynaeve was stabbed 11 times, which that one actually, no, it is shocking how much you can be stabbed and still live.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why they tell you in knife
Yeah.
fighting, slice, don't stab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, a gray man stabbed her 11 times,
That
and
is not advice, by the way.
Lanfear,
That is not
yes, don't do
advice.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Lanfear looks shocked and concerned, and she says something to the effect of only one Forsaken can either make or control gray men. I don't know what she says. Get Rand out of the city. And then she leaves. And then it cuts to Moghidian.
Mm.
So the clear implication there is, and then she keeps asking him, "Do you want to be gray?" And when he says yes, she does whatever it is to him, and you see some kind of soul sucking. The problem with the scene is I had forgotten what they did with Moghidian, who shows up at the very end of season 2, and she is like a psychotic child. There's also an element of the other thing I'm morbidly curious, and the reason I use that pun is she's acting very much like Simirhaj.
Mm. I think they've combined those. Yeah.
But they give a number. Oh, wait, no, you're right, because they aren't 13. Because Lanfear says there are 5 Forsaken left because they're assuming Ishamael is dead. And they're
So
not
seven
counting her.
total. Yeah.
So 7 total. So who knows who they're going to combine and who they're going to leave out. But
Well, we can
maybe
probably guess.
wonder.
Let's make a prediction. So if they did S and M Simmerhodge, that works, right?
Yep.
S&M and Moghedian, that would be 1 out of 2. Lanfear on her own, that's 1. Ishii on his own, it's 1. So we got 3. So
I can't remember if they named any of them or not.
we've got 4 more with 10 left. No, with 9 left.
I'm pretty sure in season 1 they name Samael and Demandred.
Okay.
And those two are big enough. I think they've got to be there.
Okay.
I'm wondering if they're going to push the fast forward button and instead of having Samael be in not Karheen,
Ilian.
Ilian, if they're going to have him be in Tyr and he's the one going to be guarding Kalendor.
So he's going to be Bilal as well.
Yeah. I'm suspecting Samael is going to be in Bilal's place.
That's still 7 out of 13 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I don't know how they don't do the transforsaken though, with these people being
As
the way they are.
oh yeah, yeah.
It's like how do you not do that?
Well, you can
So
have Agenor and Bethamel as one, and then they become back as, and so whoever the one is, that's the combination of the two, comes back as Halima.
I'm wondering if they're going to do Grendel. As important as she is, I feel like she's too sexualized for them.
No, they will do like they did with Alana, and they will even over-sexualize the over-sexualized person.
Yeah.
This might be where you get your titties, because there's no way to do that without that.
Oh no, I think Grendel's going to be a PG-13 Grendel, and it's going to be ridiculously stupid.
That would be so annoying.
But you know what? I can see that happening though.
But Grendel, I wouldn't be surprised if they combine Asmodean in there. A
I don't know how to.
narcissistic attention whore,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, speaking of
Ravine
Asmodean,
and Grendel would be a combination.
that would be an interesting. Actually,
Mm.
no, yeah, because then you could get some more gayness in by having Grendel seduce more gays if you even bother with
Mm-hmm.
that storyline.
Oh,
Yeah.
speaking of which, I did see the opening of episode 2, and I'll probably finish episode 2 before I go to bed. You're going to shit your pants at the opening of that one.
Oh, goody.
Speaking of Morgaze.
Oh gosh, no. Okay.
No, no, no.
Anyway,
It's. I don't even think you could predict. Okay, we're gonna get it live. I say you're gonna shoot your pants at the introduction to Morgaze. What happens at the beginning of this episode?
at the beginning of episode two,
Mm-hmm. You're being introduced to Morgaze.
I don't know because remember in season one, we were speculating are they combining Leandrin and Elida? And because of how the opening of this episode went, I don't think they're going to do that anymore. Which makes me wonder, okay, so is Elida going to be involved? And if so, how and why and what? I did see in the preview that they show at the end of episode one what looked like Gallet and Gawain sparring.
In the tower. Yeah, I did see that.
I
And
I
that's
think
why I
we're
think
gonna get
Matt's
that
going to be in the
scene.
tower. And I think they're throwing that one out for the fanboys.
I'm going to assume Morgase comes to the tower and throws a tantrum at Sawan over something,
That
like her
wouldn't be a
daughter being in danger or something.
that wouldn't be a what the fuck moment.
You're right. That would make way too much
Yeah,
sense.
that actually is a makes sense moment. You get one more shot. I'm not going to tell you the answer, but I guarantee you're going to text me and be like, "Holy effing f. I need a whole bottle of tequila."
All right. I think they're going to. I have no idea what it could possibly be, but my suspicion is, are they going to try and have her doing something diplomatic, but it's incredibly stupid? Like they're trying to show off Morgase, the queen, the great diplomat, but no, it's stupid.
I will give you a B on that
Yeah,
answer. Yeah, yeah. You'll get a
on the right
B.
track.
Yeah,
Partial
you're on
credit.
your
Okay.
partial credit. Your partial credit on that.
Because it just, I mean, I was trying to think of what it
You
could
showed
be.
your work, but there was a mistake along the way. Yeah, yeah.
After the point where she shows up at Tarvalon and is mad at Swan, I was like, wait, no, that makes too much sense. That is too fitting with her character and with the canon. So obviously it can't be that.
Yeah, yeah. Let's
But
just
but I
say there is nowhere in the books that would make you expect this scene.
but I could see them trying to show off that she's this strong woman and falling flat on their face because they don't know how to do it because they don't understand people. They just don't because they live in such a confined bubble.
If you're saying falling flat on your face is stepping off a curb after your CrossFit
Mhm.
workout and face planting and losing all your teeth, then yeah, that's what happened here.
Oh, goody.
Like this.
Well,
Yep.
now that we done got our tooth out.
We got a tooth out. Oh, I'm gonna gut through this second episode,
Yeah.
finish my dinner, which actually the dinner is awesome. So that that at least makes me feel a little better. And I got a hitching to go to this weekend. So
Yeah, I'm gonna go visit family, which will be a pleasant change of pace from this nonsense. And then we'll see if World War III has started when we come back, and we'll talk about it on Wednesday. And then
uh Putin
next
rejected
weekend.
the ceasefire. So
Oh, goody. Yeah, I
yeah.
figured as much. Um, so we'll see what happens, and then next Saturday we'll get back on our usual schedule and talk about.
Well, do we talk do we mention the comments? Because isomorphic commented on our land fear episode.
Oh, yes, we had a good bit of land fear here, so let's contrast with the real land fear. Uh, if this will.
Yeah, one comment I can think of off the top of my head as I'm bringing it up was something to the extent of I remember in the forums the fanboys uh, feeling sorry for her
Mm,
in response to our discussion. And okay, so here it is. I found it funny that RJ's writing of Lanfear was good enough that a significant portion of fandom was actively trying to rescue her from the shadow, saying it wasn't her fault.
mhm.
Yeah, which is right in line with how that personality works out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there was definitely, and there was that's why I pulled out that comment from the Q&A about, no, guys, she was not forcibly turned because she was there when the bore was drilled. No, no, she was already on her way because that's the kind of person she is.
Yep. And this is the one where John 005 says keeping up the good work.
Thank
What
you,
is the
John.
other comment I saw?
Okay.
Wait, what is this? Uh Isomorphic. Okay, are we having a comment that YouTube doesn't want us to see because it's showing up in the notifications but not complete?
Hmm.
The trick with women like that I learned is to, oh, I don't want to read that out loud, but not fall in love with them. But it's hard not to fall in love with the feeling of rescuing a beautiful bitch. Yeah, yeah, that's how it goes.
Oh, is that a comment on our land fear episode?
Yeah, it's from Ideals, but it's not showing up on the comments. It's showing
That's
up
weird.
in the notifications.
Yeah, it's not
Uh,
showing up for me in the comments either.
it's probably because of the part I didn't read, uh, which we might have to go into more detail on. And Pimp of Chaos commented on our Andrew Tate episode, having same hour and putting that thumbnail is level of some
I assume he
confidence.
meant hair.
I mean, I don't have the same hair though.
Yeah,
Okay.
the difference being you're not out there pretending you're some super Chad mega alpha bro who can teach all the other dudes how to be bros. And
Yeah, but also there's lighting coming down on here, and we have episodes where I have longer hair. So go ahead and just go back if you want to. But at the same time, it doesn't bother me. Okay, so let me give you this promise. If I'm gonna go bald, it's gonna be completely shaved. So that's the only way to go gracefully. But
and you're
whatever.
not going to care, but more to the point, you're not going to be putting up a facade that you're something else. The analogy would be if you're sitting here wearing an obvious bad toupee criticizing him, and it's like, okay, well then you might have a point there, dude, but neither of us are doing that. We are who we are, and we're not pretending to be anything else. He's pretending big time.
Yeah. Oh well. I mean, but dudes go bald all the time anyways. So
Well,
you know.
speaking of pretending, I'm going to pretend I'm not an alcoholic and try and watch episode 2 without passing out.
Oof.
And
It's
we
gonna be
will
tough. I
talk
gotta
about
work
it
in the
next time.
morning. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see y'all then.
Later.